So this is the effect I'm going to be creating with you today. And as you can see, it's this cloudy looking vortex effect. And I wanted to highlight a couple of material tricks, to achieve this. And we're also going to create two textures from scratch. Well, we'll create everything from scratch. And for that, we're going to use Substance Designer. Obviously, Substance Designer, it's a paid software. And so I know not everyone's going to be able to use it, but we're also providing all of the source materials, like I already said in the intro. So feel free to navigate there now or at your convenience anytime later to grab those on GitHub. And it's all in the description of the channel. So you'll be able to either follow along or later if you want to replicate this, you can do that then. So the first texture is going to be this cloudy one that you just saw. It's going to be a 4-way tiling cloud texture basically. And for that, we're going to use 3D whirly noise. You just find that here in Substance. And here we go. So whirly noise is sort of become a bit of a standard for creating real-time clouds. I believe the team from Guerrilla Games have used it in Horizon Zero Dawn to create their awesome looking real-time clouds. And what you do is you want to use a couple of different cascades. That means, different scales, mix things together. And you'll see how we can use this to create something pretty cool here. So first things first, you can't even see what's going on now. By the way, I'm using a 2K resolution here because this expects oh, sorry, I should be more zoomed in so it's better visible on the stream. This expects some coordinates, so we're going to add those in. We basically have to create them ourselves, and we'll do that by doing two linear gradients. And the second one, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then we're going to merge them with the Rgb Merge node. And you'll see if I preview this, it kind of looks like texture coordinates that you're used to seeing in Unreal Engine. So if I pipe this in now, you can see we get a result. So it doesn't look like much yet. Sort of looks like bubble wrap almost. But what we'll do is we'll mix a couple of these together at different scales. So for our first scale, we're going to go with 6, just an arbitrary number. And then we're going to duplicate this sample. For the second sample, we'll just pretty much increase it by factor of 2. So we get more detail. And then we'll just do another one, even more detail, maybe like 24 or something, looks about right. Okay, and we're gonna blend them together using the aptly named blend node here. And we're gonna use not copy blending, but we're gonna use switch blending. I think this is the closest to like a lerp in Unreal. So what this does is the foreground and background are the inputs we're using, and the opacity basically tells you how much influence either one of them is going to have. And yeah, we want to try to eyeball this in a way that we get a result that's neither of the noises is too overpowering. Okay, so we're gonna just repeat, just gonna keep blending here. And yeah, we're going to blend the output of this one with the third sample. And going to want to push this even higher, maybe 0.9. So this looks about right. And yeah, you'll see we came from, something pretty artificial looking like this to something that looks a lot more natural already. You can see how these things are mixing up. And obviously, I'm not going to go for a realistic result here. We're going to go for something more stylized. And if you wanted to, you could keep mixing here different noises to get something more approximate to actual clouds. But this is going to work fine for us. Another thing we'll do is we'll use auto levels. So we get like the full range of the histogram because yeah, this one, it's kind of biased more towards the high end. We don't have a lot of contracts. And this is something that can, definitely be visible in your work. So it's great to have like a linear output from 0 to 1. And another thing we'll do, if you zoom in here, you can see it starts looking a little artificial because there are a lot of these straight lines. So another thing we'll do, we'll just blur the output a bit. Not this much, but pretty subtle, like just one is enough to kind of break that up. And this is, this is our first texture already finished. Like I said, it's a 2K texture. And we're going to go ahead and save it. So I already have some textures saved here, but we're just going to override them. And now we're going to jump into Unreal Engine. Change my setup here. Okay, so we're going to create a new material. We'll just call it M_Vortex, which I think makes sense. And we're going to disable auto exposure here and go for like 0.2. This is just so I can get a consistent result in this preview here. Otherwise, it tends to, it wants to adjust the exposure based on the output of your whatever you're previewing, and it can be a bit annoying. Oh, and yeah, let's import our cloud texture here. So this is it. We don't need to do much to it. And it's been imported as a grayscale texture because it's detected that, all the channels are the same. And sRGB is turned off. And that means we get a linear output, which is what we want. That just means that, your texture is going to behave exactly the same in here as it did in Substance, which is, again, is something you want. You only want to use sRGB if you're like with albedo textures. Everything else, it's better if it's linear. Well, let's plug that in. Base color. And we're going to make this translucent as well. So we're just going to do a panner here. Just to kind of see what we have. So if I pan this texture, obviously it's a four-way tiling texture, tiles on X and Y, so there's no breaks, which is pretty nice. But what we want to do, like based on what you saw in our preview, we want to use a technique, a special coordinate technique that changes how the texture gets mapped. So it's radial, it's like wrapped around like that. And for that, we're going to use the vector to radial value, material function. And if you use these kind of functions a lot, these blue ones mean that you can dive in if you double click. And I would encourage you, whatever you're working with these functions, that you can kind of go in and check things out, check how things are made, because it's a lot of time, it's very revealing, and it can lead you to discovering new techniques and things like that. Just going to zero this out. So this is going to expect some coordinates as well. I can see it already works, but we're going to, just in case, if we want to change things up, we're going to use texture coordinates and a constant bias scale. So constant bias scale is a pretty handy, baked function in Unreal. And what it does is basically the bias adds to your input and the scale multiplies it. So in this case, we're going to want to go minus 0.5. So we're going to do that to our input and then times 2. And that's going to basically produce the same result here, as you can see. So, and if I just show you, like if we do add and multiply, just to make sure that, you see we get the same result. There you go. So I know a lot of the times when if you're a beginner and you jump into a visual node editor like this in Unreal, you probably, you just use the existing functions a lot, and that's what I did at the start as well, but it really helps to know what they do. So that's why I want to kind of explain some of the common used ones, so you have more awareness of what they do. So just so you know, you don't have to specifically use that. You could just, use an add and a multiply and get the same result. And so now if we try this panner, I'm going to be able to see what it does a little better. So now this entire thing rotates. We're still using a panner, but because the coordinates are sort of wrapped around like that, like an origami or something, it just spins. It's as if we're using a rotator. And if we go on the other axis, you'll see really cool result. We get this sort of a collapsing in on itself wormhole type of look. I use this technique a lot because creating these kinds of radial textures, it's often pretty time consuming. And so if you make them procedurally like this, if you just have a tiling texture and you just use the coordinate trick here, they use this, they call this polar coordinates or radial coordinates, a lot of different names. This gives you so much more utility because you can change the scale afterwards, you can animate them. So it's really powerful for any kind of radial effects and status effects. Like you could do light rays coming out of some sort of a light source or something. Pretty powerful. So one side effect, nasty side effect, I guess, of using this technique. Hopefully this is visible on the stream here, but it produces this pixel wide little artifact. It goes from like 0 to 1 on the X, and it's in screen space. So like no matter how far or close I am, I can still see it. So we're not going to go too deep into why this happens, but the important thing is that you can fix it, and that's by using DDX and DDY derivative nodes, which are very useful. And what you do is this MIP value mode on the texture, you change it to derivative, and that's allows you to input these custom derivative nodes to basically fix this problem. So you just go DDX, DDY. So these nodes are not exactly like trivial in what they do. So I would encourage you to kind of investigate them a little more in your spare time. Just for the sake of getting on with this lecture, I'm just gonna use them to solve this problem. And you'll see now that pixel line is gone, which is nice, which is what we need. So we have a nice clean result now. Yeah, very useful to learn. And lots of people have covered these nodes and how useful they are on the internet. So I'm just gonna get going here not to make this too technical. So we're just gonna do a little speed on X and on Y so we get some rotation. But we wanna do a twist. So how do you do a twist? Basically, currently this panel uses a time, but everything moves consistently across our UV range. And we wanna change that, and we're going to do that, by using a sphere mask. Those of you who know my work from Twitter know I like to use sphere mask a lot. It's like, it's my secret. I built my career on it. And yeah, basically the A input of the sphere mask, it's your coordinates. In this case, we're using normal tangent space coordinates. And B is going to be where on those coordinate system our sphere mask basically lies. And if we preview this 0.5, if we do this, it's going to mean it's in the center. And sphere mask is another one of those functions that are integrated inside the Unreal Material Editor, and you might use it a lot and without knowing necessarily what exactly it does. But I just want to show you that you can replicate what it does with a simple node network, and just has good practice to to show you that all of these functions can easily be replicated manually as well. So we're going to use our trusty constant bias scale here as well. Same thing as before, minus 0.2, minus 5.5, Jesus, and 2 to get this into the right range. And then we're going to do a distance. And that's going to give us a distance to the center here. You're going to see in a minute if I preview this. Yeah, we're going to have to invert it as well. And we're going to use a 1 minus for that. So that's going to be 1 minus our input, and what that's going to look like is sphere. Same result as with this one, basically. But then this one, this function has some useful inputs. Well, we can do that here as well. Okay, so what we're going to do here is use a subtract and a divide. You'll see what this does in a minute. Maybe we'll just, what we can do is use it in the base color. And I should also point out we're doing this fundraising event for Child's Play. This could be radius. It's a really cause we feel really strongly about, because they hook up kids with consoles and games so they can chill and play games. While their lives might be in not such a good state. They could be in hospitals. During the holidays. So it's great that we can help them. Alleviate some of that pressure it's just a good merge of, charity versus game dev and what we do, entertainment as games. So we felt it was really neat to promote it. We're going to call this fall off. And let's actually make a quick, did I save this? I'm going to make a quick material instance just so I can more easily show you what's going on here. Bring it over. So basically radius is our, radius, and you do that with a subtract, and then fall off is going to be our hardness or softness. So we can do the exact same result we would have with a sphere mask with this little node network. And usually you want to use a saturate after this. Saturate is a clamp. It's going to clamp your results between 0 and 1, because you don't want to divide by 0 or subtract negative values. It could produce wonky results. Okay, so that was a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to show you, a different way of doing the same visual the sphere mask does. But for now, we're going to use this to sort of manipulate our time here. I'm going to drop in a time node. And we're going to add this sphere mask result to our time and plug it in to the panner. Of course, we should plug this in, the base color. So right now it doesn't seem like much. It's because we need to amp this up a little bit, which is going to multiply it maybe by, I don't know, like 10. All right, so now you can see what this is doing, right? It's sort of, the time is not being linearly applied anymore. So this is getting twisted as it goes toward the center. And we're just going to decrease the speed here to reduce the twist, so it's not as pronounced, a bit of a better result. And okay, we'll do the opacity now. So if I plug this sphere mask into the opacity right now, you're going to see it's not a very interesting result. We want to do something that's that has something that has harsher edges, and we're going to duplicate the sphere mask setup. And if we go, if we pump this hardness, we can get a harsher edge, but we also want breakup, because this is really, it looks really contrived. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a subtract, plug this in. And then we're going to use, we're also going to want to invert the sphere mask. And then we're also going to do a divide. And it's the same thing, like subtract is basically, this is going to be the radius. If you imagine how the little sphere mask network I did behaved, and divide is going to be our fall off again. So we're going to do 0.1. And you can see maybe 0.2, how harsh this looks now. It's pretty different. It's more of a result that we want. And if we reduce the hardness, we can basically control the amount of the thickness of the edge of the sphere mask and the fall off at the same time. All right, so this is starting to look like something pretty neat. One thing I don't like with using this technique, this thing in the middle, because everything sort of comes and meets at this point, so it looks really, it doesn't look pretty. You could keep it for some stylized stuff, but not for this. So there's two ways I think you could go about this. You could use the same texture sample, but without the radial value, and just mask the center and then have that rotate. So just to hide that little point. But we're going to do something else instead. We're going to create this. It's going to be more of a donut shape. So the center of the texture is actually going to be empty. It's going to be like a little eye of the storm in our case. And for that, we're going to use the sine wave function. And if I preview this, you're going to be able to see right away what we're going for. Because interestingly, this sine wave creates this donut shape. So if we plug that into R1- and stop previewing, you can see what it does, right? And if we increase the period, the sine wave is gonna be longer, so to speak, and the donut is basically gonna be thicker. And that's the result. So this is already looking more interesting. And we go rid of that little pixel line in the center. What I'll do as well is I'll multiply these coordinates a little bit with a vector 2, just to give it a little more texture repetition on the X, which is going to make it look a little more defined. That's basically the first part of our effect done here. And now if I go back to my preview here really quickly, sorry, the music is still on. Maybe I'll just fade it out, but it's okay if it's on. You can see how our final effect has this flashing light integrated into it that's seemingly going on random positions. So that's something we're gonna do next. And for that, we're gonna go back to Substance really quickly, and we'll sort of you'll see where this is going. We're gonna use another noise. There's a lot of noises in Substance. We're just gonna use Clouds 3. And one thing we'll do is we'll change this to absolute size, and we're only gonna do 64 by 64 pixels. Boop. Okay, so you can see it here. And we're gonna increase the scale quite a lot, maybe just go up as high as 20. What we wanna do basically is we want every pixel on this 64 by 64 texture to have a unique value. And you'll see why that's cool in a little bit here. So just gonna do another sample. We'll change the disorder so you can see what it does. It just shuffles the values a bit. And then we're gonna do a Rgb merge. Doop, doop. Wow, 130 viewers almost. That's great. Thanks everyone for taking time to be here and supporting Child's Play, and us, of course, doing this fundraiser. Really means a lot. And okay, so back to this. So you can see what we've done. Maybe we'll go even higher on the scale, like 50 or something. And we're gonna pump the contrast a little bit. I don't like how flat that looks. And my preview here is really laggy. Just going to repeat the same with the lower sample. And just push the contrast. And we're going to... This is basically it. This is what we want to do. For some reason, it doesn't want to save me this, but I already saved this texture. So I'm going to go back to Unreal. This is all we needed to do. We're going to inspect this texture actually in Unreal. And we're going to import it. So here it is, random noise. I'm sure there's multiple, there's many ways how you could create something like this. We're going to disable the channels we don't need. And one thing we'll want to do is disable sRGB again, because we want a linear result. And we'll change the filtering to nearest. And then we're going to go ahead and use the user interface compression setting. Maybe not, the best, the safest thing to do, but just since it's such a small texture, I think we'll be fine. Because like in an actual production, you want to follow guidelines and, what the engine team and the tech artist team want you, what kind of compression settings you want to use, just so you stay within memory and things like that. But, in this case, we don't have to worry about that. But this is fine. It's a tiny texture. And you'll see what this does in a second. So, yeah, as you can see, every pixel now, we have 4,006 pixels combined, 4,096 to be precise. And basically, every pixel is its little own unique vector 2 that's normalized between 0 and 1. Okay, so back in here, what did I do here? Yeah, this is all good. We're just going to preview this. Okay, and what we want to do here is, again, we're going to plop down. So if we divide this by our texture resolution, which we know is 64, we're basically going to zoom in on that first pixel. And what we'll do actually is then we're gonna if we do an add here and just plug time in, you see we're sort of panning diagonally across the texture now. But instead of diagonally, I just want to pan across X. So I'm gonna use a panned vector, and we're gonna leave Y alone. We're gonna set it to 0, and then we're gonna just pan on X. So now you see what's happening. And what we're gonna do, we don't want time to just keep going, indefinitely. So we want to clamp it somehow. And one of the ways you can do that is with a fractal fractional node. And what that does is it outputs the decimal part of the input. So in the case of time, if you plug the time in, it's always going to cycle between 0 and 1. And you can see what that's doing. It's, it shows that first pixel, then it goes all the way, it moves one slot over, and then it goes back. It keeps cycling. But of course, we want it to go all the way across. We could just multiply this by 64, but I wanted to show you another cool node here called fmod. So this is a modulo, and you can imagine it works similar to frac. Actually, basically whatever you input in B, that's going to be where the when it returns back to 0. So if we do 2, it's going to move 2 pixels over and then come back. And since we know, we have 64 pixels, we're just going to do that. So now this is going to, keep going until it reaches the end of the texture, and then it's going to pop back. And what we'll do is we'll do a round, so we don't get those in-between values. And now you can see what that does. Like, we've sort of created a little random vector 2 generator that has a period of 1 second currently. So if we multiply the time here, maybe we can go just speed, a pretty generic name, but it's going to work. If you do 1.5, yeah, this goes faster now, as expected. Amazing. This is actually the first time I'm streaming, by the way. So yeah, if you'll excuse any nervousness and sloppiness, and yeah, thanks for your patience and everything else. Okay, so just so you can see where this is going, if we use a sphere mask now again, I like to use the sphere mask. We're going to preview it and then plug this. Actually, we're going to do a mask because we only need the 2 components. And of course, we're going to make it smaller. You can see what this does now, right? Like this little sphere mask is going to jump around, based on our time input. And, it's a neat way to add some randomness to a shader, because normally in the shader, you can't just, there's no random number generator either. You have to input something. Maybe you could input like a float parameter from somewhere else, like Blueprint, or someone, could do it directly through code. But one of the cool ways of going about it is using these, like a texture sample, like I just did here. And another thing we could add, just for, we're not going to use it, but just as an idea, since we're only using the first row of this texture now, we could do another add and then another append. And in this case, we're going to leave the X to 0. So it's basically it's going to use whatever this outputs. And then this could be our seed. So if you make this into a little function, if you change the seed, and maybe we should use the seed should be a floor as well. So it's not, or a seal or a round, so we're not getting in between values. But if you change the seed now, it's going to use a different row of pixels to go through. So yeah, you have 64 different seeds and 64 different positions in each. So that's pretty cool. So one of the things that's happening right now, we're seeing this sphere mask just jumps around. And what we're going to do instead is make it fade in and out with every sort of lighting flash, because that's what we're going for. And what we're going to do here to achieve that, we'll drop in another frac. We're going to use a sine wave basically, because that, sine wave has that property that we like, it goes up and down. And I'm going to show you another convenient function here. It comes with Unreal. It's called plot function on graph. And we're going to preview it. And if we input our sine here, it's doing its classic sine thing. It goes from -1 to 1. But we don't want that. Like, we want to go from 0 to 1. So what do you do in this case? Well, we can use, again, a constant bias scale. And just the default settings are going to do exactly what we want, but I want to explain a little bit. You'll see here now, this is clamped between 0 and 1, because our bias moves the sine up, so it goes from 0 to 2, and then with the scale, we're crunching it down to stay between 0 and 1. And I'm just going to get rid of this function now because we don't need it. But I use that a lot, by the way, because a lot of the times you'll be building these things here and you don't know exactly what's going on. It's just a great way to visualize things, and you can do all sorts of graphs. And like, if you want to make sure that you're using like some sort of like an easing curve or an exponential curve, it's a great way to confirm that what you're doing is actually what you want. Right, so now if we multiply these things together, let's see what we get. Okay, so we get blinking, but the problem is the blink kind of happens, it's offset, it doesn't match. And for that, we need to offset our time here a little bit. We're just going to do an add. And I think we need to subtract 0.75. Yeah, that's it. So, and you can see how strong this technique might be. With something like this, you could, if you did a couple of these functions together, you could do like raindrops in a puddle, right? And now it's probably time we plug this in. What we'll do as well is, we're going to color this a little bit. I'm going to drop a multiply, a vector 3. And we're going to do a warm color like 10, 1, and 0.5 or something. And now let's get this going in here. We're going to stop previewing. We just pipe that into the emissive. Surprise, surprise, it's not going to look so great. It looks pretty like it's stamping that color directly onto the texture. But we'll do a couple of simple tweaks to make this a lot better. Let's see. We're going to do another multiply here. And plug it into the emissive. And again, I want to just, everyone that's joined lately, in watching the stream, all of the source files are available if you want to, go through all of these presentations later. We're sharing them on GitHub. So, and also we're recording all of these streams, so they're going to be available to watch offline at your convenience. I know, we live in different time zones and a lot of us are busy during the holidays as it is. But thanks for tuning in. Okay, we're gonna do a power here. Just to crunch this texture a lot, just like 6. Okay, so that already looks better. Let's multiply this vector 3 so we get some stronger light. 10, how about 10? There you go. And another thing I like to do is if we multiply this sphere mask with itself, we're basically doing a power of 2. And that's going to make the light much softer. There you go. It looks much better already. Let me increase the size of this. Much closer to our preview. And what we'll do actually, I should have done this before, but we're gonna multiply this with itself as well. And what that's gonna do is it's going to make the twist more pronounced towards the center. Like, it's not going to be such a linear fall-off for the sphere. And like I said, this trick, it's the same as, dropping in a power of 2. But I believe it is cheaper. If you're just going to do a power of 2, it's better to just plop down a multiply and do this. Cool. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of the effect, the way we I presented it in the in the beginning, it's kind of done, right? But I wanted to show you a couple more tricks and push this further a bit. So one of the things we have here, this color, it has a nice fall off from bright to dark, but it's very monochromatic. It doesn't have a lot of interest. So what we can do is just shift the hue a bit, and it's going to become more interesting. So for that, another convenient Unreal function is Hue Shift. So we're going to plug in our in the texture input. It just expects a vector 3, and I believe this is already going to work. Oh no, actually, I mean, we need to use the hue percentage, which is 0 by default. Yeah, so if we use our sphere mask here, it's going to be really colorful. So this is not what I meant, obviously. This is too much, right? But if we multiply this a bit down to like 0.1, there you go. So now we have that fall off from more of an orange color to red. And it's a much more interesting result. It's a great way to add more interest to your effects, or more richness in color. And if you want to make some changes as well, like if you add, you're going to move the hue throughout, through the color wheel and get different results as well. Like if we go negative. Right, and so one of the things we could do here is, we have this random number generator, so let's just use it to see what happens, in this offset. We get a bit of a randomized color every time. But hold on, like this is, I definitely had this right the other, it should be the other way around, shouldn't it? There you go. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, we're definitely working with, by trial and error here. So this is what this produces, like every flash has a different color, which is pretty neat. And we can make the flashes, you can use this random thing we created for, in all kinds of ways. You could, every radius, every flash could have a different radius. We could use it to maybe like do some deformation inside the cloud texture, whatever, whenever the lightning flashes in that position. And oh my God, we already got $731.03 today. Amazing for, the first hour here. Thank you so much again. Yeah, this is our result. And, I'm creating this entirely inside one material. Just wanted to show you, how far you can push things. And I'm sure, a lot of you already know how powerful shaders are. Obviously, if you were building this kind of effect in production, you would use many different materials and with different elements and to complete an effect. So one of the things I always like to ask myself when I'm making an effect like this is, how to push it further. So one of the things we could do, hypothetically after, as an extra thing, we could add some depth to this storm. Right now it's just a flat plane, but if we did that, it would already look more turbulent. Plus we could use some vertex offset to like add a little more deformation to the geometry, to add more depth. And one of the cool things is as well, like a lot of the stuff that I've done here using node networks could be kind of baked into the effect itself. For example, if instead of just a sprite, we could use a mesh that was unwrapped in a way that basically would make this radial coordinate stuff redundant. So there's always ways of optimizing your effects in VFX, and that would be one of them. One of the first ones I would do. This is great for exploration, but then, usually when you want to ship stuff, you want to make sure it's as optimized as possible, and that would be one of the best things I think you could do in this case. And you always want to look for ways to optimize your work. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be it for as far as my hands-on presentation goes. And now I'd like to turn it into a bit more of a Q&A. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was, educational. I wanted to keep it pretty basic, show a couple of simple concepts. these are the kind of things I use a lot in everyday work. It's a classic thing to use this kind of a radial thing with a tiling texture. Is it better to use a sphere mask node than use a texture to mask? Well, it's a good question. Well, let's say if when you create a texture like this texture, I'm only using 2 channels here. So we have an available channel, blue. It's a low res texture, but you could pack something else in here, right? You can always channel pack your textures. And if you're going to use certain textures a lot, like sphere mask, I'm usually, I'm pretty cheeky and just use it. It's like, because you don't get any compression, you get really accurate results, and you can modify a lot of parameters. But then maybe once you're happy with your result, you could definitely bake things down to a texture, which is in most uses like better, unless you're really out of texture memory. Especially if you're repeating things a lot, it's better to bake things down. I think perhaps now it's time for me to wrap things up, because we're going to have a colleague of mine, Thomas, is going to be on next. And he's going to present storyboarding and animatics for VFX and for games. So that's going to be a super fun one to watch. Thank you all so much for your time and your generous contributions. Sorry if I missed anyone's question, but you can always hit me up on Twitter as well. Happy to, I'm always in my direct messages trying to, answer as many questions as I might get. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time and generosity. All right. Thanks.